believe in magic in a young girl's heart. How the music can free her whenever it starts, and it's magic. If the music is groovy and makes you feel happy like an old-time movie, I'll tell you about the magic and the free your soul.
Hi there. So this is part 2 of the group of articles that I found in the Spectator. Like I said, these are all old news. None of these are recent. I think the only one of them was something that was even kind of recent. But what they are is they're just really well-written articles. And it shows that things in the UK were absolutely, people were trying in the UK to kind of fight back against the tyranny of Meghan and Harry. And I just found them all interesting and very well written. And so here we go. This is the part 2. I think it's again about 4 articles that I wanted to share just because they were just so good. Now, as I had said, each of the 2 parts that I did, the 2 videos that I did, had one article that was particularly long. And this is the long one from this second part. And this is 6 of the worst bits of Meghan Markle's interview. And the interview they're referring to is the interview with the Cut magazine. And this was written in August 2022. And this is written by this Steerpike. And this is kind of the Spectator's answer to kind of a, Dear Abby kind of thing. Like a gossip columnist that, I don't know what else you want to call it, an agony aunt kind of thing. I have a lot to say, claims Meghan Markle, until I don't. But there's no sign of such silence happening anytime soon, given the Duchess of Sussex's latest sally in the pages of an American magazine. Whatever happened to all that privacy, eh? In a 6,400-word cover piece for The Cut, the Duchess certainly had plenty to say on everything from the British media and royal family to how little girls see her as a princess, and of course the similarities between her wedding and the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. Already the Mandela family have hit back with the great man's grandson declaring that overcoming 60 years of apartheid cannot be equated with marrying a white prince. It's all done to promote Meghan's 28-man, multi-million-dollar Archewell podcast, released last week, just a mere 600 days after being announced. And given the extent to which the Duchess spoke over her guest, Serena Williams, it's a surprise she has anything left to say. But this being Meghan, there's always axes to grind and grievances to bemoan, often to the point of self-parody. Indeed, Mr. S has had to check the byline several times to make sure Craig Brown hadn't gone transatlantic. Below are 6 of the worst moments from the Duchess of Sussex's latest musings, ahead of her return to Britain from Montecito, California, next week. Which I believe that was right before the Queen passed. That was when Harry and Meghan were scheduled to go back to the UK for that Young World Summit. First off, now these are the 6 points. The royals. The most important thing to remember about Meghan is that she is definitely, absolutely not vindictive. You got that? Sounding like a menacing mafia don, she remarks to her interviewer, Alison Davis, that it takes a lot of effort to forgive. I really made an active effort, especially knowing that I can say anything. According to Davis, her voice was full of meaning as she said this. Even Don Corleone didn't have Oprah Winfrey on speed dial. Meghan then told Davis, I have a lot to say, until I don't. Do you like that? Sometimes, as they say, the silent part is still part of the song. Steerpike's dictionary defines silent as not speaking, not uttering or making or accompanied by any sound. 2 years after Megxit, her media coverage has been anything but. For them taking her voice, huh? The fans. Number 2, the fans. The second most important thing to remember about Meghan is that she is definitely, absolutely not anything other than selfless. Even though she and Harry have stepped back from their royal duties, Meghan is apparently very aware that people see her as a princess. It's important to be thoughtful about it because Even with the Oprah interview, I was conscious of the fact that there are little girls that I meet, and they're just like, oh my God, it's a real life princess. I want to know one little girl who said that. Someday, maybe they too will have the chance to date Ashley Cole. Number 3, the hubby. For all her swipes at the firm, it's perhaps her fellow self-exiled member and darling husband who comes out worst. He emerges midway through the interview to greet the latest journalist summoned to tell our love story, the piece that they haven't been able to share, that people haven't been able to see, other than the royal wedding in front of 30 million people. In his absence, the Duchess refers to Hazza in similes that are gluttonous and baffling in equal measure. She tells her guest that salt and pepper are always passed together. She said, "You never move one without the other." That's me and Harry. We're like salt and pepper. We always move together. Oh my goodness, even years later it still makes me want to throw up. The Duchess also depicts her husband as a banal simp, claiming that one of the first things my husband saw when we walked around the house was those 2 palm trees, she coos. See how they're connected at the bottom? He goes, "My love, it's us." Mills and Boone could only dream of such evocative prose. Love story? More like a horror show. Number 4, the press. For all her talk of forgiveness, there's one group for whom Meghan reserves her purest bile: the dastardly British press. She claims that if the couple's son, Archie, were in school in Britain, she would never be able to drop him off at school or pick him up without it being a royal photo call with what Davis describes as a press pen of 40 people snapping pictures. As the Times royal correspondent Valentine Lowe pointed out, that would come as news to her sister-in-law, the Duchess of Cambridge, who has happily been doing the school run for years without any problem. There are rules that govern this sort of thing, and they apply to Meghan's children just as much as they do to Catherine's. The question is, does Meghan really not know that? Or has she forgotten? My guess is she doesn't care, because it's not about the truth, it's about her narrative. More serious still are Meghan's insinuations about race. Talking about the British media pool system, designed to be mutually beneficial for both royals and journalists, she complains there's literally a structure by which, if you want to release photos of your child as a member of the family, you first have to give them to the royal rota. Why would I give the very people that are calling my children the N-word a photo of my child before I can share it with the people that love my child and who, in your social media account, Meghan, knows your children enough to love them? Will Meghan name any members of the royal rota who apparently use such a slur with gay abandon? Mr. S. won't hold his breath. Such vehemence is all the more jarring given Meghan insists elsewhere in the interview that, when referencing Netflix's cancellation of her animated series, "I don't read any press, so I don't know what's confirmed." Yeah. Then how do you know they said bad things? Number 5 is the interview itself. Davis is a fairly even-handed, even sympathetic interviewer to Meghan. I don't think she was as sympathetic as people think. I think the cut was a cut. So it's all the more baffling then that throughout their exchange, Davis suggests the Duchess made several desperate efforts to control what she was going to write. In one exchange, she dictated how Davis should interpret the noises she was making. Davis wrote, "At one point in our conversation, instead of answering a question, she will suggest how I might transcribe the noises she's making," saying, "She's making these guttural sounds, and I can't quite articulate what it is she's feeling in that moment because she has no word for it. She's just moaning." Could you even imagine, like, at the end of, like, an hour interview, Meghan comes up with that? I would laugh in her face. Meghan went on to make a big show. "Do you want to know a secret? of revealing her intention to go back on Instagram. Well, there we go. A little reminder, Megan had this entire crazy train that we're watching now planned since 2022. But when the interview was over, she had second thoughts, with Davis writing dryly. Later, Megan would relay she was no longer sure she would actually return to Instagram. The interviewer walks away wondering if somehow I'd missed everything she was trying to say. Oh, yeah, you absolutely did. Because everything was pure innuendo and insinuation. Because she wanted to say so much more, but she said as much as she possibly could without getting into serious trouble. In trouble, like legal trouble, or trouble where the thought police are going to come in, the interview police or anything like that. But she was very careful to walk a line of that backlash. She knew there was going to be some, but I do think that she did not expect as much backlash, and that's why Allison P. Davis ended up having to take a leave of absence or something like that. Because originally, Megan thought she was in charge of that interview. And when the article published, she realized that she wasn't. And she was pissed. And that's the only reason that she got as much backlash as she did. And number 6, still despite it all, at least poor old Megan can take heart from the future and the couple's $14.65 million new home. The Montecito house is a kind of big that startles you into remembering that unimaginable wealth is actually someone's daily reality. Megan claims their new life is a startup. We were building a business. If only every startup had some good old blue-blooded royal cash to fund it. Talk about making a Montecito out of a molehill. So there you go. You can see here, Steer Pike is the Spectator gossip columnist serving up the latest tittle-tattle from Westminster and beyond. And I thoroughly enjoy them. They're very good. That was the one long article, and now these are just, again, back to these ones that are only a couple paragraphs long. They're quick, and they get to the point. Brace yourselves for Meghan Markle's comeback. And this was January 2nd, 2025, so a couple months ago. But, you'll see. As many of us lurched blearily into 2025, desperately trying to remember how exactly we'd manage to cause offense to our nearest and dearest in the hinterland between the old year and the new, there was another unwelcome surprise waiting in the wings. In the late afternoon of January 1st, just as the nausea and regret of the previous night was beginning to dispel, the Duchess of Sussex decided that the perfect moment had come to relaunch herself into public consciousness. Out of nowhere, a 28-second video appeared on her hitherto dormant Instagram account, which is now branded simply as @Meghan. Of course, what many may have hoped for, an announcement that she was going to leave public life altogether, was not on offer. Instead, the short film, presumably filmed by Prince Harry, who can now add cinematographer to his varied skills that include best-selling author and serial litigator, depicts Meghan, clad in virginal white, skipping onto a windswept, overcast beach and writing 2025 in the sand before merrily sashaying away, leaving viewers in a state of mystification as to what this particular re-entry into public life connotes. The year 2024 was an extremely quiet year for the Duchess. Was it really? I must have missed that. After a lengthy period in which she seemed to be ubiquitous, making her feelings about the royal family and other nemesises abundantly clear, the past 12 months saw her retreating from the spotlight to brood and scheme in Montecito. There has been much talk about her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, but the company has failed to launch. Meghan has named herself CEO of the fledgling firm after fruitlessly searching for someone who would take over responsibility, or blame, for the strawberry jam and luxury homeware that she is said to be peddling. But since she and her husband visited Nigeria on a quasi-state visit in May 2024, she has kept the lowest profile that she has managed since she became a regular fixture in the world's news and social media alike. What about Colombia? They forget that? Well, this period of Purdah has come to an end. The new year represents some kind of comeback for the Duchess, although it remains uncertain as to whether this will simply be the long-awaited and equally long-delayed opportunity for the curious public to spend their money on American Riviera Orchard's produce, or whether she has another grander project in mind. The chances of it being another documentary or memoir are currently slight. The would-be revelatory Netflix show that she and her husband featured was in a byword for overstretched tittle-tattle, and the recent paperback release of Spare barely made a dent in the bookshops. So the question as to how she wishes to resume her assault on the world's affections, attentions, and interests remains opaque. I'm sorry. I understand that you may not appreciate this, that not everyone's going to love this. I love this author. It has been suggested that her new social media account is intended to authentically share moments of joy and inspiration from her life, and that the clip beautifully underscores the joy and positivity that defines this new chapter in their lives. There are many emotions that come to mind when Meghan and her self-serving actions present themselves to the world, but joy and positivity are very low on the list. Instead, this video looks like another attempt at a rebrand, its full intent still concealed from us. No doubt its purpose and what the Duchess has in mind to torment us all with this year will become clear in due course. As we overcome our collective fug of hangover and inertia, we can once again rejoice in the knowledge that the most divisive public figure of our times has returned, and that the intendant discourse, in all its overexcited forms, will be dragged back with her. Happy 2025, everyone. It's kind of fun looking back on this as 2020 hindsight and seeing if we knew then what we know now. Next up, what Meghan Markle's digital army has in common with trans activists. And this is from December 28th, 2022. Now, I think it's important to note, I believe, although maybe it's just that I was out of it, I don't think that the trans argument was as big in the United States in 2022 as it is now. So it's something at least I didn't, I heard about it in the UK before I saw and heard it being a movement as much in the United States, for what it's worth. 2022, I wouldn't have made that comparison or that connection, but I can see how it could be made now looking back. If Meghan Markle's army of digital defenders didn't exist, we'd have to make them up. Otherwise, the never-ending controversy over Harry and Meghan, the royal couple turned Netflix show, would not really be controversial. And all the tens of thousands of media articles, such as the one you are now reading, would be not just pointless, but defunct. There would be nobody to argue with and nothing to argue about, apart from Brexit, obviously, and Matt Hancock. I assume Matt Hancock is a UK reference. Markle's digital army does exist, however. They are, like radical trans activists, a minority who manage to make a lot of noise, chiefly because most of us derive considerable satisfaction from the shared feeling of irritation that they generate. To say there is kind of something to that, because it does kind of bring all types together, doesn't it? Occasionally, the gods of the media headings, the great outrage algorithms above the sky, will grant the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's supporters a win to keep us all interested. That's why Jeremy Clarkson had to be publicly shamed for his silly paragraph, a bad joke at worst, in The Sun, in which he wished that Markle would be paraded naked through the streets. Clarkson's daughter took to Instagram to denounce him, the most nepo babyish act any child can do. Some 20,000 people complained to Ipso, and The Sun apologized. Over Christmas tables across the country, every boringly right-wing uncle and aunt had to be informed by his or her tiresomely woke nephews or nieces that Clarkson had gone too far. This is how the discourse, as online people call it, works. After successfully parading Clarkson naked and ashamed through their feeds, the Sussexites are fired up and gunning for more. They are duly making another fuss about an article in Politico entitled 2022 is the year we all finally got tired of narcissists. The author of the piece, Joanna Weiss, made the perfectly reasonable argument, expressed more in hope than anything, that our patience is fading when it comes to those who use attention as currency and ego as fuel. Well said. She included what happened this year to Harry and Meghan, along with Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Kanye West, as well as the tech ripoff artists Elizabeth Holmes and Sam Bankman-Fried. Weiss was hardly venomous about the Sussex. They seem tiresome, but genuinely well-intentioned, she wrote. But the fact that she can cast them alongside such dangerous right-wing egomaniacs as Trump, Musk, and West triggered an angry weather event on social media. A barrage of media-savvy figures demanded Politico issue an apology for having published the offending article. Nick LaPara, the founder of something called Let's Give a Damn, me neither, told the publication to do better. The entrepreneur, Christopher Boozy, a contributor to the Harry and Meghan documentary, said that the article attacked Meghan for having defended herself while black. These Meghan haters all have something in common, added Boozy, a man who doesn't appear lacking in self-regard. Meghan got the prince, and you must learn to deal with it. Of course, the reaction neatly disproves Weiss's theory, though not in the way the Meghan fans think. A lot of people want 2022 to be the year that narcissism lost its influence. We've wished the same every year since the social internet began. Pathological narcissists aside, we all want to be less interested in attention as currency and ego as fuel. But we can't help ourselves, and that's the point. What overbearing egos really fuel is anger. And sadly that, as Meghan and Harry prove, is an ever-abundant power source. We all feel it one way or another. And here we go. Here I'm saving the best for last. Meghan Markle's upset over South Park. Sources say the Duchess of Sussex is overwhelmed by how she has been portrayed, and this clearly is from February 2023. And this is all about Meghan's reaction to South Park. And I really hope South Park will do a part 2. I mean, you cannot tell me, South Park, that you do not have more than enough material to do another one. Harry and Meghan have yet to publicly speak about last week's episode of South Park, presumably because they don't have the staff left to formulate a press release. But California sources claim that Meghan has spent the past few days upset and overwhelmed about how she was portrayed. If you've read anything about Harry and Meghan over the past 3 years, you'd think the pair would be delighted with how South Park parried them. The entire episode, titled The Worldwide Privacy Tour, gives them enough fodder to moan for a few more books, or Netflix documentaries, or Spotify podcasts. Meghan can cry about how she is a victim of misogyny, and Harry can claim that this was all a narrative concocted by the big bad press, or his family. In fairness, South Park didn't hold back. Meghan is described as a sorority girl, actress, influencer, victim by a brand manager during the episode. Later on, Harry has an awakening, realizing that their obsession with branding has made them turn ourselves into products. He claims that there will be no more magazines and Netflix shows. We can just live a normal life. However, when he leaves, Meghan decides to stay, so the prince exits alone. Ironically, after the episode aired, rumors began circulating that Harry and Meghan were so frustrated with the show that they are now taking it out on each other. Now, I don't remember that, but if it's true, I think that's pretty funny. At least their spousal disagreements are taking place in a 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom mansion. No awkward passings in the hallway for them. Sources claim that Meghan is annoyed by South Park, but refuses to watch it all. But for Meghan, this couldn't have come at a worse time. The Duchess is said to be obsessed with her half-sister's litigation. Meghan's half-sister, Samantha Markle, is suing her for defamation following their tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey. The Duchess has previously filed a motion to stop depositions in the case from taking place, but it was dismissed by a Florida judge, Charlene Edwards Honeywell, this month. Then there's a coronation. Meghan and Harry are supposedly weighing up whether they will attend or not, but according to sources close to her, the Duchess feels excluded from the whole thing. Probably better to leave it then. Well, she should feel excluded because it has nothing to do with her. It's not about her. And anytime it's not about Meghan, she's going to be pissed off. Aside from all of this, the pair have been made aware that nosy journalists have been poking around Archewell and asking serious questions about what they actually contribute. And this comes after the couple released a report tooting their own horn. When don't they do that? Sources claim that the friction between the couple stemmed from the negative reaction after Harry's memoir Spare. The BBC published a review that called the memoir the longest angry drunk text ever sent. I'm sorry, I'd never read that before. James Marriott from the Times called it a 400-page therapy session for Mystic Harry. I have heard that. However, much money it provided the couple, it wasn't enough for Meghan, who is said to be embarrassed by the whole thing and seeking support from mentors. Trouble in paradise? I mean, I just can't even not laugh. I mean, the longest angry drunk text ever. I love it. That's great. That's a great way to classify Spare. And the thing that they won't outright say in these news articles, the one thing that I think not enough people made mention of, is everything about that book screams that it was written by Meghan. And that's why she was really upset at the way the book did not do very well. Not because Harry's book didn't do well, but because her book didn't do well. But I hope you enjoyed this second little jaunt into Spectator. I mean, I think these authors are all fantastic. I mean, I found something that I'd been missing, that's for sure. And like I said, I'm not getting anything from this. There's no sponsorship or anything. But I would recommend go check out The Spectator. I think you get like a 3-month trial for $5. I jumped on it, and I'm loving it. They probably made a subscriber for life out of me. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day filled with love, laughter, and, of course, dancing.
Dancing in